Pat Raleigh continued his hot hitting as the Mariners took another series, this time versus the Cincinnati Reds. We're going to break down these games, how the Mariners looked, and maybe talk a little bit about the pitching staff over the next couple of games, because it's going to look a little bit different than I think that we anticipated going into Toronto. We're then going to talk about just some things over the past week, some things we've noticed, before we get into Joe's Operation Overreaction. You decided what that is yet?
Nope.
All right, perfect. And then we're going to talk about the Toronto Blue Jays series coming up starting on Friday. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 183 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Boomer, the Rodin, the JD, and the KC episode of the podcast. All of those folks ordered from our Fourth Wall shop, some of our Mariners Anonymous merch, some of our Mariner Mojo logo shirts and whatnot. So we appreciate all you guys for doing that. I'm here with Joe. Joseph, how are we feeling after a big come from behind win on a Thursday?
Thursday, early morning game. Went a little bit longer than I think we anticipated. The game started at, 9:40?
Mm-hmm.
It's a long game, but we come away with the series dub. Third series win in a row. They're starting to stack them up, which is what I asked them to do, which I think is what a lot of people ask them to do. Yes, winning every game is important, but getting series wins, if you take 2 out of 3 every single time, that's a 667 win percentage. That's good. Taking 2 out of 3 from the Reds on the road after you were winless on the road in your first 3 games against the Giants so far to start the year, it's a good way to bounce back, to establish some good footing for the longest road trip to start the year, 9 games until you return back home. It started off on a bad foot in game 1. It was going okay for a bit. Mariners got out to an early lead. 2 runs in the first 2 innings. Dylan Moore. Not just the Dylan Moore leadoff home run. This was the Dylan Moore game in game 1 against the Reds. Opposite of Luis Castillo in this game was Nick Lodolo, your pick, who is better than Hunter Green. The Mariners said, that's not true in this game. Thank you for pushing my narrative. Yeah, Dylan Moore got off to a hot start. He just had an amazing game. Went 3 for 5, 2 homers. I felt like this was a winnable game.
Yeah.
And it was.
He had half the Mariners hits in this game. For all the RBI driven in as well. So Ben Williamson was in this game, got his first hit in the major leagues. So congratulations to him there. JP Crawford had a hit in this game as well. But overall, the offenses didn't really show up, unfortunately. But the bigger story here is, I think, Luis Castillo, who in his return to Great American Ballpark gave up 6 runs over 4 1/3, 7 hits, 3 strikeouts. One of those, of course, being a big 3-run home run. And the 4 walks, that you mentioned is another rough one. Gregory Santos in this game also only pitched a third of an inning, gave up 2 runs. It didn't matter, but he did get optioned after that. 3 walks as well. In the end, Luis Castillo just didn't have it. You're going to lose games like that once in a while. You can't rely on your pitching every 5th day to be good. You know what I mean? Night in and night out. We got it for the most part last year, but at the same time, you're going to have days like this where a guy that you relied upon, Luis Castillo, kind of gets shelled a little bit. With that being said, he had a first good couple of starts to the season, and people were really ragging on him after this start, saying how bad he is, and I don't think that was justified.
No, even after this really poor start, 6 earned over 4 1/3, his ERA is at 4.22.
Yeah.
It could be much worse. He outdueled Tarek Skubal, and his ERA going into this start was below 3. I feel like you're gonna run into some bumps in the road in a full 30 start season, 180 innings. They're not going to be lights out every single time, and if they are, then that pitcher's going to win the Cy Young kind of a situation. Did we expect Castillo to be a little bit better than what he showed us on Tuesday's affair? Maybe, given what he pitched already, especially with the Reds being a pretty bottom tier offense going into this series. Dropping 8 runs wasn't really on the ledger, and you lost that game. The Reds just outslugged you, and that's kind of the tail of the tape for game 1.
Game 2 with Bryce Miller on their mound was a pretty big game for Bryce. He kind of found his form after he had been missing it for most of the season. He did only go 5 innings. They kind of abbreviated his start because he's mentioned that he hasn't been able to bounce back very well from his previous starts. Only 78 pitches for Bryce, but 51 strikes, which is important for him. He struck out 8. He had 2 walks on 3 hits, no runs scored against Bryce Miller. Got his first win of the season. So a great game for Bryce. It was nice to see him kind of dial that command back in, be able to use that fastball and that splitter effectively against the Reds offense that, like you mentioned, has been pretty pedestrian for a lot of this season so far. So
Mhm.
I think it was pretty exciting to see Bryce out there.
We also saw a season debut from Troy Taylor not go super well. Did not record an out, gave up 3 earned runs. So
ERA of infinity.
yes, not the start that you're not the start to the season that you're looking for Troy Taylor, but those 3 runs did not come back to bite you in this one because the Mariners had scored 5 runs up to that point. It was a 5-0 lead heading into that 7th inning. Mariners, I mean, a good offensive game. 10 hits across the board. Cal, homers from both sides of the plate, goes 2 for 5. Randy, another good game. You're looking at Dylan Moore, another 2-hit game in this one. Just across the board, a lot of people helping get the job done. Ben Williamson back-to-back games with a hit. That would continue into game 3. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. And JP, a great series for him to really kind of maybe hopefully get back on the right track. His walk rate is very unsustainable as it stands. It's still, I think, north of 20%. If it dipped below that after today's game, that's neither here nor there. That's still unsustainable. If he can get his average slowly start to climb back up into like the 240s, 250s with a good walk rate, he'll be a productive WRC plus kind of hitter, like using that metric. But this is a good series for JP Crawford, going 2 for 4 in the second game to hopefully continue to set things right for himself going forward. And game 3, Thursday, a weird game, a very strange game.
Yeah, so we originally thought it was going to be Brian Wu starting this game, but it was announced late last night, actually, that it was going to be Emerson Hancock, which kind of caught me by surprise, I think you as well, because it seems like going into a rubber match, you probably want to have your best pitcher on the mound, and that would have been Brian Wu, instead of going to Emerson Hancock, who we know how badly he struggled in his first game. But Joe, you made a really good point that the reason they probably did this is because they want to, A, keep guys on, get the guys an extra day of rest, but B, they also want to make sure that they have their best pitchers pitching in an American League game that could have tiebreaker implications. Unlikely, of course, but it's possible in like a wild card at the end of the season. And so because of that, you'd probably rather have Brian Wu out there versus an American League team than against an NL team where there's no way of a tiebreaker playing in at all there. So I think in the end it makes sense. And thankfully it worked out in game 3 as Emerson Hancock gave up the 2-run home run in the first inning, but other than that, looked pretty good. 5 innings pitched, 5 hits, 2 earned. He struck out 4, no walks on the day. He threw 73 pitches, another shorter start for one of the starting pitchers. I don't think that they wanted to give him the opportunity to go out there again and, potentially ruin what was a pretty good start and hopefully one that kind of builds his confidence a little bit, as well as the fact that if you're the Mariners, you want to make sure that you give yourself the best chance to win, and I don't know if leaving Emerson Hancock in there would have been the way to do it.
It would have been his 3rd time through the order as Spire comes in to try and get through the kind of bottom half of the lineup, doesn't end up working out, and you have to face the top half, I think, in that 6th inning, which Snyder came in and helped finish the job. But it was, did Friedel lead it off?
I believe so.
Yeah, so that is the top half. That is, that would have started the 3rd time through the order for Hancock, which... Again, that's the most time, more often than not, that's where you see a lot of damage, especially a guy that gives up. He doesn't miss bats a lot. He's pitching to contact. 3rd time through the order, you never know what's going to happen there. Hancock put you in a good spot to win this game. Luke Raley, he got some runs back in the 4th inning with a 2-run home run, helped tide the game, and the Mariners took the lead in the top of the 5th. Cal with a little dribbler to
however that happened.
to Ellie that sneaks on through, but a good offensive game all around for many guys on this roster. Cal, a puts you within reach of a game-tying home run in the 9th. Continues his stretch of 6 homers in 6 days, or 6 games for Cal as we're heading to Toronto next. So keep your eye out for Cal, as will they let him into Canada? We're
with the torpedo bat.
We're a little skeptical. Randy, obviously a huge game from him. 2 for 4, 3 RBI, on base 4 times. One of those being the tying home run in that 9th inning. Rayleigh, like I said, home run. Ben Williamson continues his hitting streak. 3 games, hitting every single game. Dylan Moore goes 2 for 5. Mastrobuoni hitless, but walked 3 times, laid down a great bunt as well. JP 2 for 5. Like, the one player on this starting lineup that I'm really looking at that maybe could have given you more was Julio. 1 for 6, does score 2 runs, but it's not the best from your leadoff batter there, but it doesn't matter. You score 11 runs. Courtesy, I mean, there's 4 errors on the Reds' ledger here. Shout out Ellie De La Cruz for, I think, 2 of them. But
yeah.
let's see how many total earned runs. Only 5 earned runs to the Red side, but 11 runs given up. So the errors, the costly fielding mistakes is what gives the Mariners the edge here. They did get Brady Singer, who's been off to a pretty good start, get him out even before he finishes the 5th inning, gets him out in that inning. Worked his pitch count about to 100. I think it was like 90. It was in the 90s. So they were able to get to the Reds bullpen early, who for the large part of the second half of the game were able to keep it kind of calm. But the big problem here for us in this game was Dan Wilson's bullpen management in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings, I think, of this game. And maybe not the 9th, but 7th and 8th, where, yes, what other options do they have? You have the best option in your bullpen to maybe get out of a bases loaded jam from Edward Bizardo. You turn to Thornton to get out of a jam that Vargas put you in that ended up being okay, and Thornton only threw 4 pitches. Why is he not back out there to start the 8th? He pitched the game before. It was a long time in between innings. We're not sure. And I think that's a lot of the questions that people will have after this game of why was Bizardo in the 8th and why did you let him pitch with the bases loaded?
Yeah, that definitely should have been Andres Munoz in that spot. And we've talked about, oh, well, the Mariners won, so, like, it's bad process, good result, which is exactly what this was. Bizardo should have never been in there to face Luke Raley. It should have been Andres Munoz.
Jake Fraley.
Did I say Luke Raley?
Yeah,
again?
I mean, it's okay.
My God.
It's okay. It's very, very similar.
Normal, just whatever first name, and then Raley.
Yeah.
Raley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should have been Andres Munoz there, and for all of the warts that Dan has, and again, we told everyone at the beginning here that it's going to be a learning process for him. He's gonna slam his face into a door once in a while, but this was one of those games where if the Mariners lost this game, we'd be in a really bad spot.
That is the 3rd loss to give into Dan Wilson's ledger.
But because the offense bailed Dan out, it sucks. In the end, I'm just happy there was a win. But you're facing the top of the order with the bases loaded, game on the line, and you still have Andres Munoz in your bullpen because you're waiting for a save opportunity. Well, after that grand slam, if Cal and Randy don't hit those home runs, there was never going to be a save opportunity. So what was the point? And in the end, Andres didn't get a save anyway. So who cares, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that the way that Dan manages is very much old school, and which can work. It can, but also you really want to use your best option in the biggest part of the game. The inning that Andres Munoz pitched in was not the biggest part of the game. I can't even tell you what happened in that inning. I don't remember because I don't care.
Yeah,
it wasn't the biggest part of the game. The Mariners were ahead. Like I wasn't worried about it. Casey Legomina in the 9th was interesting because again, if he gives up a run there, you just left Andres Munoz in your bullpen. Like,
yeah.
I would assume that Munoz is down tomorrow.
Back-to-back games in this one, no off day in between. Yeah, he's probably not able to pitch, but it doesn't look like many pitchers will be able to go tomorrow if we end up in a situation where you need to close out a game. Thornton's probably down after pitching back-to-back games. Sure, he only threw 4 pitches, but like, why was he not back out there to throw the 8th? Are you going to turn to Colin Snyder, who pitched in the first game, I believe, and then only threw 10 pitches in this one? I think Snyder's probably the more likely out of him and Thornton.
Yeah, Snyder and Legumina should be up for tomorrow's game.
Troy Taylor should be up.
Yeah.
But you really need Wu to get into the 6th inning.
Yep.
I think.
You really need him to get deep. I think that one thing that has been a problem for the Mariners so far is their pitchers have just been not getting deep, and credit to the teams that they've been facing, right? They have been working the pitch counts on a lot of these guys, and I think that because of that, well, the Mariners starters haven't been going as deep, and we know how shorthanded, I guess, the bullpen is without having Matt Brash, Gregory Santos not being where you want him to be, Troy Taylor just making his way back. Like there's reinforcements coming for the bullpen, but they're just not here yet. I mean, Troy Taylor's here now, but we'll have to wait and see with him. So interesting to note, though, there is one thing I wanted to talk about here. Leaving the Reds, right? We're leaving Cincinnati. Luis Castillo started the first game. One thing we did not talk about in the last podcast was that apparently a team offered an infielder for Luis Castillo, and the Mariners said that they are unwilling to trade Luis Castillo at this time. A lot to unpack there. I doubt we'll ever know the team. I try to, like, who else had pitchers go down so far this year that could
that would need a pitcher like Castillo. Maybe Twins don't have Pablo Lopez right now, so it could have been like Jose Miranda, who they optioned and now is, I think, traded. That might not be accurate. I don't know. I could see the Twins though, but I don't know if they'd want to take on the money.
Right. Yeah, I don't think they would. It's an interesting one. I actually didn't watch the Marine Layer guys had a video about like who it could be. We didn't watch it, but so I can't remember who they said. But interesting to note, the Mariners are currently unwilling to trade Luis Castillo. It makes sense
Hmm.
because again, if you trade Luis Castillo right now, then you have Emerson Hancock and Logan Evans having to make starts for you every fifth day, or Luis F. Castillo, or what Jonathan Diaz, what have you.
Whoa.
It's just bad practice. Like Luis Castillo gives you one of the best opportunities to win every fifth day compared to the other options. You don't trade him right now. I think that if you're going to trade Luis Castillo, you wait until the offseason again. Like it's too late now. It's too late. And maybe if you're out of it at the trade deadline, sure, but he still has to waive that no trade clause. His no trade clause is up in January of 2026, and then you can trade him wherever you want. And so I don't know. It's an interesting story. I can't say I'm shocked that they said they weren't willing to trade him. I can say, however, that I'm shocked that a team has already made an offer for Luis Castillo this early in the season.
Yeah, if there's like a team that needs to make like a knee jerk move, like really get after it, and you're trying to go out there and get a guy that perennially has given his team 25 to 30 starts every year, 180 innings of an ERA that it's not like sub 4, an ERA plus. He's above league average is what I'm trying to get at. I'm not surprised that a team would be eager to try and go out and get him, given the Mariners' stance on him in the offseason, but with the injury to Kirby, how that fifth spot has been utilized so far this year, I am not surprised. I don't think it's an overreaction from the Mariners' standpoint to completely deny any option or any trade whatever for Castillo going forward.
I do want to mention one more team before we get to your overreaction.
I was just teasing.
The Chicago Cubs did lose Justin Steele.
Yeah.
Could they have revisited this opportunity with the Mariners and maybe offered them Matt Shaw,
Who got optioned. If they offered Matt Shaw and the Mariners said no, like very sternly said no, that'd be pretty interesting because Matt Shaw's an interesting Yes, like he got optioned for a reason, like not off to the best start, but that is a top prospect at a position of need within your infield that has a lot of club control. He's not a Jordan Westberg as far as production's concerned, but I would be surprised if the conversation was, as they described it, if it was Matt Shaw, that short of like a no.
With that being said, though, you and I talked about something that we had heard, or I had heard during spring training, about the Mariners making a trade for two pretty big players, and that they said no to that. So I think they might really be like valuing Castillo quite high.
Sure.
Because you and I we can't talk about what the trade was, but we can talk about the situation. The Mariners would have traded Luis Castillo for a bona fide player, was an all-star, and then for a top 10 prospect? I don't know. But anyway, we got to beat around the bush here. The fact that they said no to that,
Yeah.
I think it would have taken a lot more than Matt Shaw to get this deal done.
Yeah. That I don't disagree. If it was Matt Shaw and a pitcher that is not really like up for the Cubs, I can't think of someone else. It would have been a Hayden Wesneski.
Yeah.
Type B if he was still on the team, but yeah. If it was the Cubs with Steele going on the shelf for the entire year, that's not a bad team to revisit though. Especially like once you get Kirby back, like see if they want Hancock. You're one of your big bold predictions that Hancock pitches well enough to be traded at the deadline to net you some value, maybe to the Cubs. It's possible.
You think that's a bit of an overreaction?
I don't think so.
What is an overreaction?
I had one in my head and then now it's gone. Oh, overreaction. Okay. I've been stewing here trying to come up with something that would make sense. Cal Raleigh will finish his Mariners career with more home runs than Julio Rodriguez will have in a Mariners uniform.
Wow. Okay.
Cal's hit 8 in 19 games so far. Obviously past the 100 home run mark in this series against the Cincinnati Reds. If Julio, say, flames out and doesn't live up to his potential that we've all set lofty expectations for, I know Julio's got the pop. He's got it. He's a super athlete that can do anything on a baseball field that you might ask him to. But An overreaction of a guy who's already hit his 100th career home run, who's tied for the American League lead in home runs right now with Tyler Soderstrom. Cal Raleigh will finish his Mariners career with more home runs in a Mariners uniform than Julio Rodriguez will.
Yeah, Julio has 83 home runs in his Mariners career right now. Whereas, like you just mentioned, Cal has surpassed 100 now. Obviously, Cal came up in 2021, Julio in 2022. I wonder what their at-bats are. So Julio in his career has 1,801
I think Cal probably has less.
at-bats. I would agree with that. Cal Raleigh in his career has 1,637. So in less at-bats, Cal Raleigh, and obviously we know that he was one of the fastest to ever do it in a Mariners uniform. Julio likely will be in that top 5 as well when he reaches it. He needs 17 more. Probably gets there this season, I would hope.
I hope so.
I hope so.
It doesn't fit my overreaction narrative, but I hope he does.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think the only problem would be longevity of Cal,
100%.
like, because he's a catcher. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, those guys, when they fizzle out, they tend to fizzle out hard. Julio could probably still make a living, even if he fizzles out pretty bad. He could probably still make a living as a fourth outfielder, maybe platoon guy at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Cal, it just depends on how long his legs will stay beneath him. I think that's a pretty tough part.
Longevity and age will be the thing that ruins this thought 100%, and I know that, but that's what the overreaction's
right.
for, you know.
Right.
Whether or not Cal could go for 40 this year.
He could. He's well on his way.
Maybe he goes 2020. He's got 4 stolen bags on the year already.
Can you imagine Cal stealing 20 bases?
Dude, I hope he does.
That'd be sick.
That would be awesome. There's a lot that I'm changing it to Cal 2020. No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna stand by my overreaction. Do I actually believe that in my current state I could see it happening? But I understand that it is very, very unlikely that Cal continues at this pace for even the entirety of his contract that he just extended with the Mariners. Like, if he's going to hit 30 to 40 home runs a year for the next 6 years, of course, that puts him into the 300 home run. You know, he'll eclipse that in a Mariners uniform. I think Julio, at his ceiling, could hit 500 in a Mariners uniform if he plays the entirety of his contract and he does come into his own and is that 30 to 40 home run every single year annual player that we all have. I mean, we saw it in the first 2 years pretty much. Maybe not the 40, but when a guy's that young, that prolific of an athlete, it's not hard to imagine him taking that next step and exploding for a 3-year peak where he does hit 40 home runs every single year. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but also, previously, Cal didn't have a torpedo bat. The torpedo bat might be the way.
I'm saying maybe Julio should start using it. Maybe they should all start using the torpedo bat.
Maybe.
Like, it's working for Cal. Just get in.
Is Randy using one?
I don't think so. Even though he said he liked it, I don't think he's used one
He
yet.
hasn't used it yet?
But what would be really cool, I'll be interested to see if they allow the torpedo bat and Cal Raleigh into Toronto for this upcoming series on Friday. An Apple TV game, by the way. L.
Is that going to be available on the Root Sports app?
Probably not. It'll probably have to be on Apple TV, which is an L.
Huge L.
But Brian Wu takes him out for the Mariners, like we talked about earlier, against Bowden Francis.
I don't actually know. Bowden. I think it's Bowden Francis.
Bowden Francis.
Yeah.
Brian Wu's coming into the game 2-0 with a 2.84 ERA, 18 Ks. Francis coming in 1-2, 3.71 ERA with 15 Ks. Don't think the Mariners have really faced him too much, but what are we looking at?
Is it Castillo in game 2? Or I thought it's Gilbert in game 2, is it not?
It's a good question.
Because Gilbert pitched further away than Castillo did. So it should be Gilbert in game 2.
Really reslot it like that? Let's see. That says Luis Castillo.
Will you check Twitter and see what Daniel Kramer said?
Yeah.
Hold on. Before we're getting ahead of ourselves, I kind of got a little lost in the sauce. Did you talk about Francis's stats so far in the year?
A little bit, but
a 3.71 ERA, 15 strikeouts. Broke onto the scene last year towards the tail end of the 2024 season for the Blue Jays. Trust me, I streamed him in fantasy. He was stellar. He was lights out. A darling of the Gate 14 podcast. Bowden Francis, good pitcher. Brian Wu's better. Brian Wu getting slotted into this rotation for the Blue Jays specifically because they're an American League opponent. They're more high quality, there's more value for Brian Wu to pitch in this series than against the Reds. Apple TV will be interesting. We know, I mean, I'm still of the belief that the Apple TV baseball is a little bit juiced.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be another high run scoring affair. The Mariners currently put up a 113 WRC plus on the season, ninth in all of baseball. Right behind them, the Toronto Blue Jays at 109. They are 10th in all of baseball. I believe the Blue Jays are 11-8 on the year, so one game better than the Mariners. I don't think they're in first in the American League East, but I think they're playing better than teams maybe had anticipated to start the year. The Blue Jays, they're striking out 18.2% of the time, so they don't strike out a ton. They're going to make a decent amount of contact. They hit 256 as a team. They're just not slugging a ton. I think Vladdy just hit his first home run the other day. So they're not slugging super well, but they are hitting the ball pretty well in general. I mean, a 256 average, that's got to be, that's fifth in all of baseball. So they're not doing it with the long ball necessarily, but they're putting the bat on the ball, and it's led them to an 11-8 record. Will Brian Wu be able to miss some of those barrels and some of those bats? I mean, he struck out 18 so far this season. I think he's got the stuff to do it. But Colton, let's talk about this game too. It's Castillo.
It is Luis Castillo, game 2. I do want to mention that you said Vladimir Guerrero Jr. there. He does have the only home run in the lineup for the Blue Jays versus Brian Wu. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, Luis Castillo, game 2. Obviously, we just talked about his last start. Didn't go great. He'll be opposed by Jose Barrios, who was 1-1 with a 5.16 and 21 strikeouts.
Bro, this doesn't... I'm so confused. It doesn't make... He's pitching on 3 days rest.
I don't know.
I'm lost. Because he pitched on Wednesday.
Right.
Thursday, Friday. He's pitching again on Saturday. That can't be right.
Was it Wednesday? No, he pitched Tuesday.
Did he? Oh, it was game 1. Okay, 4 days rest. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I swear to God, it's Logan in game 2. They messed up.
I mean, Daniel Kramer tweeted even it was Castillo game 2.
If you're watching this, and somehow, some way, they've changed it to Logan Gilbert is pitching on Saturday, just know. All right, just
Joe
know.
with the head. Versus Barrios, not a whole lot of at-bats versus him. Jorge Polanco in 14 at-bats has 1 home run.
Oh.
Mitch Garver is hitting .333 with a homer off of Jose Barrios. The most at-bats on the team is Randy. He has 15 ABs hitting .267.
Makes
sense. Against Luis Castillo, a little bit more here. Andres Jimenez, my GOAT, with 16 at-bats as a home run and 3 RBI. Alejandro Kirk in 5 at-bats as a home run. And Anthony Santander has a home run versus Luis Castillo as well here. The most at-bats there being Andres Jimenez.
Okay. And Jimenez, I think, off to a better start offensively than people, again, would have expected given how he performed last year, just in terms of expectations. I think that's good for the Blue Jays I think that's why they're 11-8. There's a handful of players that are, I think, playing above their expectations to start the year. I think partially also their rotation or just their pitching in general. They are 5th in baseball with a 3.36 team ERA. Mariners, I mean, after today, of course, it balloons a little bit after you give up 7 runs, but a 3.92 ERA, so not necessarily the best there. They've got a 3.74 FIP. Toronto's got a 3.93 FIP. So ERA to FIP discrepancy favors the Mariners there just a little bit because, I mean, over a half earned run more between the ERA for the Blue Jays compared to their FIP. Maybe the Mariners can take advantage of that in some fashion, but Barrios, a 5.16 ERA on the year, has not been the same pitcher for the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has kind of fallen out of grace as far as like the top of that Blue Jays rotation. We don't face Chris Bassett. I think he's having a pretty good year to start. And then I'm not entirely sure about Gossman if he's having a good start to the year, but I know Jeff Hoffman, off-season acquisition for them, has pitched well for them in the closer's role. So Toronto has the advantage pitching-wise, which is a bit strange to say on the year so far, where the Mariners have the slight advantage offensively, but I think the advantage more so leans in the Mariners' favor because Cal Raleigh is playing in Toronto and
with a torpedo bat.
With a torpedo bat. So
it's like a game of Clue.
Exactly.
Cal Raleigh
in Toronto with the torpedo bat.
With the torpedo bat.
Perfect.
He took Colonel Mustard deep.
Is Colonel Mustard Jose Barrios?
Yeah. Game 3 here. Logan Gilbert versus Easton Lucas. WHO Megalol.
Easton Lucas.
On April 20th at 10:37.
Is that Easter Sunday?
Easter Sunday falls on April 20th. You know Ty Dane Gonzalez is going to be at the game, having the time of his life. Logan, so far on the year, 1-1 with a 2.38 with 32 strikeouts.
Dang.
Against him for the Blue Jays, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has done pretty well. He has 2 home runs and 13 at-bats, hitting .385. Anthony Santander has a home run. George Springer has a home run as well. Easton Lucas, not shockingly, the Mariners have hardly faced him. Cal Raleigh has 2 ABs versus him. Mitch Garver has 2 ABs versus him. Otherwise, that's really it. The only person with an RBI is Cal and JP Crawford. Yeah, I mean, left-handed pitcher on the mound. You're going to see the right-handed lineup. You'll probably end up seeing Donovan Solano in this game. You'll probably end up seeing Mitch Garver in this game. You'll probably end up seeing Ben Williamson in this game as well over there at third base. So kind of a getaway day before they have the off day, right? Heading into Boston.
Yeah, off day on Monday, heading into Boston on Tuesday, which is weird with how the rotation is set up. If they skip the Hancock start or they do something different with it other than Hancock, he pitched well enough to where he maybe has earned a start in that Boston series, but the off day allows them to get weird with it, and I don't think we know exactly what that move will be yet. But not to backtrack to the Red Series, but winning the Red Series allows a little bit more leeway for the rest of this road trip. Mm-hmm. Yes, the Blue Jays and the Red Sox are more important series to play and win. But starting off with a series win, winning 2 out of 3, starting above 500 on this 9-game road trip, if you drop one of these next 2 series, you can still end this road trip above 500. Like, yep. You can end it with a winning record at 5-4 if you lose one, but not in a sweep, and you win the other, not in a sweep. Yes, if you sweep or get swept, things get a little bit different there, but I'm imagining getting swept in this series against Toronto feels a little bit out of the realm of possibility, potentially, just given, I mean, you've got Wu on the mound and you've got Gilbert. Not to discredit Castillo in any way, I think that's the most favorable matchup against Barrios in that situation, but like the final game with Gilbert versus Easton Lucas, that feels like another very, very winnable game for the Seattle Mariners, especially heading into an off day. Hopefully Logan can give the bullpen a bit of a rest so that way they're very, very fresh heading to Tuesday.
Yeah, because the Red Sox, they're 10-10, but we know their offense is pretty solid. With that being said, that's going to do it from us here on episode 183 of the Hit It Here podcast. We appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.